Hey, and welcome to another Tech Tuesday. This is Chad from Ascension Worship. This week we're doing four tips on how musicians can get more consistent mixes between rehearsal and service. But before we get into that, at the end of this video, there's going to be a link to a new video from Collaborate Worship. Our friends over there today have a video where they are interviewing a very handsome man that looks a lot like this. We're going to be talking about how to get better live stream mixes on small phone speakers. So really cool stuff on that. Okay, so back to today's video. Again, we're talking about four ways to get better, more consistent mixes for your in-ears or stage monitors between rehearsal and the service. Because I go to a lot of churches where there's a misconception that the sound people are messing with the mix between rehearsal and service. And sometimes that's true, but a lot of times there are other things at play that we haven't thought about, and I want to talk about those things today. So the first tip is different days, different ears. What I mean by that is I know a lot of churches like to do a midweek rehearsal, and you cannot expect to have the same in-ear mix or monitor mix on a Monday night rehearsal after a full day of work, stress, loud noises, all that kind of stuff, and then compare that to a Sunday morning rehearsal where hopefully we've just finished a full night of sleep, we've got fresh ears, things are going to sound different. So you have to understand that. Now, there are ways to try and mitigate that, which we're going to talk about in this video. But first, you have to understand that you cannot practically expect to have the same mix because different days are different ears. So one thing that I would highly encourage you to do, most churches do this, but I know a few that don't, is you have to have some sort of rehearsal on Sunday morning. You can't only have midweek rehearsal. So either that's a run through of the set, or a full-on rehearsal, or maybe you even just rehearse the first song, but you have to do something so that your sound people can lock in the gain settings and you can lock in your mix settings for your ears or stage monitors. Otherwise, it's just unrealistic to expect to have the same mix as what you did on that weekday night. Tip 2, rehearse with confidence. Now, one big important thing I have to state before I even get into this is you have to understand the difference between practice and rehearsal. Practice is what you do by yourself at home in preparation for rehearsal, because rehearsal is where you take all that practice and you put it together with the rest of your teammates before you have a product that you can present to your congregation. Now, a problem is I know a lot of churches that do midweek rehearsals and they come in on like an early day, like Monday or Tuesday, and they haven't practically had enough time to learn the songs to rehearse confidently. Now, the problem with this is that if you're playing softly because you don't know the parts yet, the sound people there have no real opportunity to get a decent mix for either the house or for the people on stage. And frankly, it's a little bit of a waste of their time to be there. And that's unfortunate. So the ways around this is either you can just understand that, hey, we're kind of lax on how perfect the mix needs to be on rehearsal day because we know we're going to tighten it up on Sunday morning. And again, don't expect to have the same mix on Sunday morning as you do on Monday night. Or two, you maybe need to have your rehearsal later on the week and encourage your team to learn the songs in that time and come and rehearse with confidence so that the sound people can actively make mixes that are going to work for what you're going to do. Now, vocalists, this means if you can, you need to sing full volume. And if you can't, because you don't want to blow out your voice, then tell the sound people, hey, I'm not singing it full volume on this song. We'll adjust it on Sunday morning, or at least give them one song in the night, like, hey, this is going to be my full volume. So those kinds of things will really help you to rehearse with confidence. Tip 3 is to suppress the Sunday morning jimmies. What are the Sunday morning jimmies? The jimmies are where you finally have a crowd in front of you and all that work is coming to fruition and you get excited, you get amped up, and then what happens is you start playing louder, you start singing louder, and then it becomes a monitor mix tug of war between you and the other people on stage, and it becomes a bit of a problem. The sound people are freaking out because they're seeing red lights going everywhere. The guitarist over on the right is playing a little bit louder because he's excited because he can see people in the front row. The guitarist over on the left is having a harder time hearing because the sound of the guitarist on the right is playing louder. So that person starts playing louder. And then the keyboardist is stuck in the middle and everything just goes out of control. Okay, so 2 things you can do to fight off the Sunday morning jimmies. One, again, is to rehearse with confidence. So you need to rehearse as if there is a crowd in front of you. That means, again, singing out full volume if you can. You should even practice what you're going to say between songs. Do all the things that you would do if a crowd was there so you can present a realistic expectation to your sound people and then get all their levels dialed in for you and for your ears. The other thing is when you're actually in the service, you got to suppress the jimmies. So what that means is that, keep yourself from getting out of control. There are ways to emote physically on stage to help lead people in worship that don't involve you singing loudly or playing loudly compared to what you did in rehearsal. And you have to actively practice how to suppress the jimmies. So I know for me, I'm a bass player. If I start playing really hard because I'm excited, it doesn't just get louder, it starts to become kind of flabby sounding because I get a lot of string noise that I didn't have during rehearsal because I wasn't playing that hard. So one thing I do is I put myself a little bit too loud in my in-ear mix, and I actively play a little bit softer to maintain the tone I want. And I understand if it gets really loud, then I know I'm playing louder than what I did during rehearsal, and I try to pull that back. Still look excited on stage, but not play overly excited, and that gives me a more consistent tone, more consistent volume for my in-ears, for the other people's in-ears, for the stage, for the house mix that's going on, and it's just helpful overall. Now, this is definitely a team effort activity. You got to try and get everybody to do that, and then you'll end up with a much more consistent result between rehearsal and service. Finally, tip 4, that's right, tip 4 is to have proper in-ear technique. And some people are going to hate this, but I'm going to say it. If you can, you should wear both in-ears at all times. And here's why. So imagine, again, I'm a bass player. I've got a drummer off to my right. And let's say that maybe I'm playing somewhere where unfortunately there's a terrible drum mix in my ears. So what I do is I pop out an ear, and now I'm hearing that drummer in, let's say they're not in a shield or an isolation or any kind of cage like that. And so I'm hearing full force drums coming into my right ear. My left ear is the only ear that has click in it at this point. And so what do? Well, I turn up that ear so that I can hear the click at the same volume as the drums, because those are 2 things that I'm keeping time to. Okay, well now, not only am I damaging my hearing from hearing a full-on drum kit on my right side, I'm now actively causing my own ear damage on the left side because I'm cranking up my in-ear mix to compensate. Whereas if I'm able to wear both in-ears, then the goal is going to be to mix everything lower than what you would hear without in-ears on stage, and you're going to get much healthier life to your ears over the long run if you can do that. Now, this is a little tricky because you're probably used to hearing it loud, and that's kind of what you want to do. You have to actively teach yourself through proper technique how to mix your ears at the lowest volume possible while still hearing what you need to hear so that you're not overworking your ears. Because you have to understand your ears are some muscles that are listening to what's going on here. And what ends up happening is if we're listening to a really loud mix, our ears will start to compress and protect ourselves from all this loud volume that we're imposing upon ourselves. And so you've got your ears compressed after all this stuff, and then either days later or even just from rehearsal until service, you go in the green room and you kind of hang out and just talk for a bit, and your ears start to relax and decompress. Okay, so now your ears are somewhat decompressed. You go out, you put your ears back in, and the first song starts, and all of a sudden you're getting nailed by this crazy loud mix that you created earlier on during rehearsal because you were using bad technique, and that's the result. And so you're like, oh man, the sound guys have been messing with my mix. No, it's probably more likely a bad mix that you created, that now with fresh ears, you can tell that better. So ways to fix that. Again, if you can, wear both in-ears all the time. If you need to, get molds so you can get better isolation between what's going on outside. Sound people, whenever musicians wear molds, they feel isolated and detached from what's happening around them. And one easy way to fix that is to install room microphones on the corners of your stage. Those microphones are going to pick up not only the sound of the crowd, but also the sound of the drums bouncing around the room, all the things that you would normally hear without in-ears. And you can blend that in tastefully into your in-ear mix and get a more natural sound and not feel like you're completely isolated from the world. So I hope that helps. If you can get those 4 things to work well, you will find that you'll have more consistency between rehearsal and the actual service, and everyone's gonna be a lot happier for it. Okay, guys. Also, don't forget to go check out Collaborate Worship. Again, there'll be a link somewhere on the screen here in just a moment. Go check that out. And until next time, have a great week. Again, this is Chad from Ascension Worship. I hope this has been helpful for you and your team. Come back here every Tuesday for new information.